you find yourself searching, yearning for more, but you don't know what that more is? I'm Catherine Duncan, near-death survivor, mystic, and intuitive. Welcome to Everyday Awakening. On this podcast, I explore what it means to be alive. I help you awaken into your soul and live fully now. Through inspiring conversations, we'll dive into mindfulness, spirituality, and the transformative power of presence and living aligned with its universal energy. Together, we'll examine life's biggest questions, and I'll share practical wisdom to help you open your heart and awaken to the preciousness of being alive. Honored today to share with you my conversation with my guest, Alyce Chan. Alyce has many talents. She's a speaker, writer, producer, and stand-up comedian with a global presence. Her comedy has graced renowned venues such as The Stand and New York Comedy Club. On top of all this, Alyce is a creative mind behind MOMCOMNYC, a parenting platform that even Vogue took note and recognized it as one of the top 6 funniest parenting Instagram accounts. Welcome to the show, Alyce.
Thank you, Catherine, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
Well, I'm a fan of your work and follow you. And I have to say, I have also had a busy career and raised children. And I admire your ability to do this. And I remember the days of working, and my kids are now launched, but I look back now and I think, how did I do it?
We find a way. We survive and we find a way. And I think we sometimes don't know what our capacity is. And we can do hard things.
I'm curious to ask you, how do you find balance with raising kids? You're living in New York City, you have a big full life, you have a tour coming up. What does that look like for you? How do you find breathing room and peace in your life?
I think I'm really lucky. I'm very privileged to have a partner that can work at home. And so if I can't do pickup or school drop off, he's there to help me. My kids are also a little older now, and that's when I start to do more traveling outside of the city to do more of my tour. And they're a lot more self-sufficient. They can work the iPad. And so I think right now it's a balance of, me communicating with my partner, who's going to be home, who's doing this, what's happening next week, when am I traveling, do we have coverage? If not, do we need your mom to come, or do we need some friends in our neighborhood, which we have a really great community, and that's very important to have. Can someone step in to, have the kids for a play date or do a pickup or drive them to soccer or something like that? Right now, I think it's working. And of course, it's always changing. But I think the important part is if we can communicate and I have a partner. I mean, for the people who are parenting single-handedly, that is the toughest job. And you need a community. I can't do it alone, just with my partner. We also have his mom. We also have neighbors. We have great friends. So that's what it takes. It's not just me handling it all.
Oh, and having a partner community, so important, so helpful when you're really busy.
Yeah.
Huge. Do your kids, have they seen you do a stand-up comedy show?
No, they're not allowed to because most of my content is above 17, 18. But the ironic thing is I used to do stand-up for newborns and babies, not for them per se, but for their parents. So I would do a BYOB, Bring Your Own Baby. It was in Brooklyn. And we would have maybe 18 to 20 caregivers, whether they are moms, nannies, grandparents, or fathers. And they would bring their newborns if they were on maternity, paternity leave, or if they wanted to do something other than a sing-along class. And that's when my kids would come and join me. They didn't know what I was saying. That at that point, my littlest one was 6 months to 9 months, and my oldest one was a toddler and he was just busy playing with the other toddlers or coloring. So that was the only time they were in my performance or watching or kind of watching me doing my comedy show. But all the other shows, I go on my own. And sometimes my partner will come, sometimes my family, such as my sisters or my friends, but never my kids.
How old are your kids?
I have two boys. One is 8 and the other one's 11.
Wow. I can only imagine having raised children and raised a son that even the 11-year-old must be chiming in once in a while like, "Hey mom, this would be funny to say," or
Yes. He gives me ideas all the time. He's like, you can grow your channel if you could just listen to me. Here's an idea. I'm like, no, that just won't work with my demographic.
That's so adorable. My kids are in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're always wanting to give me advice.
Do you
You should
have,
do this,
you have
mom.
boys,
A
girls?
boy and a girl. Yeah. Yeah, but they're like, if you do this, gosh, I think this would work on your podcast or book promotion event, and it's
I
it's
think
it's never ending. It's super
it's
cute.
so sweet though to have
Hmm.
ideas that they want to share with us.
Hmm.
That means they are a little bit interested in what we're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
with it.
exactly. So Nora Ephron, a writer, she talks about everything is copy, and I'm guessing you find inspiration often in your days. But I was curious to ask you, when do you find the most inspiration in places or places even that surprise you for the work that you do?
A lot of it is based on real experiences. Sometimes I get really funny stories from my friends, and I will think of something like, oh, that would make a really funny sketch. And yesterday I was trying to cook something kind of elaborate, but it involved in cutting up onions and garlic. So to me, that's elaborate. And
Mhm.
so I was cooking some shrimp noodles. My kids have never tried shrimp, and I told them if they tried it, um, I would take them to McDonald's, to a fast food place. And so they tried it. I had to use bribery. But when I was bribing them, a thought came to mind, and I was like, this would make a very funny reel because I think it's so relatable, where a lot of parents struggle in trying to get their children to eat, trying to eat healthy or trying to eat what they're trying to make. And I thought I could take this to more absurd level. And I told my kid, I'm like, I'm going to feed you my dish. I'm going to hand it to you. And I want you to say, ew. Like he would never say that, but I wanted to make it so absurd that it would be funny. And then I actually did take them to McDonald's, and that was part of the sketch. And I think it resonated with a lot of parents, and it did really well because I think a lot of parents, one of their struggles is what to feed your kids and how to handle picky eaters.
Mhm. That is so good. And
Yeah.
just wait, when your kids get older, my kids remind me fairly frequently. They're in the 90s, early 2000. I used to feed them raw broccoli. I don't know why, but I was so into raw veggies, raw broccoli. And now they're like, "Why? Why did you make us eat raw broccoli?" And even my daughter, which we finally figured out when we weren't looking, would take the broccoli and stash it under the cushion of her chair at the kitchen table. It was hilarious. We finally one day pulled the cushion up and there was tons of
Oh
broccoli.
my God. That's amazing.
And seaweed. I made them like I did a big pot of seaweed and put it in the middle of the table, like, let's try this, everyone.
Oh,
Yeah.
that at least you exposed it to them. I'm
Mhm.
sure they had a little bit, and right? They
Mm.
must have had because I feel like I was when I became a new mom, I was reading a lot about you have to expose your child 20 times or more until they finally try it. And that's how many times you have to expose them to something new because they have to be familiar before they can even like take a bite.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that. I agree with that. You must, I'm guessing, find quite a bit of fascinating content just on the streets of New York City. My daughter lives in New York City, and when I visit, it's fun and it's like wow, the
My gosh,
energy, the people, everything. Every time
so
you're like,
much.
You
It
experience something new that's like, well, that was interesting.
all the time, every single second, it's like stimuli. Like there's just so much going on. So when I come back home, I'm just like, wow, that's so it's so much, but it also makes I feel like I get creative. I absorb what people watch, take in the energy. I just love New York City.
Mm. And then do you find when you get home or I don't know, in the middle of the night, ideas just come to you or pop into you or an idea?
Yeah. A lot of it actually comes to me when I suddenly wake up at 2, 3 in the morning. And that's when I get the most creative. I think because of my subconscious mind is like waking up and I start writing, jotting down ideas, or I'm on my phone. I'm like, this will be funny, or I'll think of a punchline to a joke. And so that doesn't make me as miserable when I know that, when I wake up at 3 in the morning, I can actually be a little more creative in terms of comedy sketches, ideas, finding a punchline to that one joke that will just tighten it up a little bit more. It comes in odd times. And sometimes I just have a whole week not creative at all. I just
Mm.
don't have it. So I just wait for it, and then when it comes, I just have to embrace it.
And I've heard this with many creatives that the brilliance, the ideas, they come in the stillness. They
Yeah.
come in the middle of the night, or I mean, Albert Einstein talked about this. I share one of my favorite singers is Lenny Kravitz, and he talks about it. He was
Really?
in an interview. I think it was in the fall. I went to Las Vegas to see his show. It was so fun. But he talks about his last album, Human, which is amazing, how it came to him early hours, words, lyrics, and then he woke up and he started writing it. And
Oh my, I
I
love
know, really great. So,
I love that you got to see him live.
mhm.
He's amazing.
It
One of my
was so
favorites.
fun. He is so talented. But yeah, and I find also in the work that I do, I work with clients providing emotional, spiritual support and a writer and a blog writer, and things come in the stillness and the guidance
Yeah.
comes in the stillness. I get so much guidance when I'm just here in the moment, not in my mind. It's all there.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we just feel it.
So I know in the last year, I think I've seen on social media, you've talked about some loss in your family that you experienced. And I'm curious with your work as a stand-up comedian, how humor has helped you in life and loss and what you'd say about that.
I love that question because I feel like when you're at your lowest point, when you think you're in such pain, there's only one direction that can lift you out of that. And I think it's humor. Even if you're not a funny person per se, like you're not the type of person to tell jokes, I think everyone has a gift of receiving humor, understanding that, and also being able to physically laugh at something. And I think that's medicine, it's free medicine. And I remember I learned this. I always felt I was funny. I'm a middle child, so I felt like part of my job was really to keep the peace in the family, and humor was my survival mechanism. Even at school, when I was being bullied, I'm like, how do I make friends? Make them laugh. That was a tool. And I've always had that in my tool bag. And I think I learned this when my grandma was dying and she was in a coma. We were all waiting. Families kept taking turns going to her room. It was like a day and a half, which felt like a long time when you're waiting for someone to transition. And I remember everyone was so heavy, my mom especially, because she was the oldest and it really hit her hard. We were in the cafeteria eating, and then for some reason, I felt like I should have done a silly dance or something because I knew that's what made her laugh. She isn't fluent in English. We speak Cantonese and a broken English when I'm with her. So when I started to do a dance, it was very goofy. And I don't know what came over me, but she started laughing to the point where she was tearing up. And after that, I was laughing too. We felt such a levity, like we felt light. And I think that's what we needed to, because we knew what was going to be ahead of us. And this is what was going to allow us to be more resilient and push through. And it did. And then my dad passed away in late 2023. And same type of, this hit me because it's my own parent. And I never faced such a deep loss. And I didn't know how to handle it. But I found, and throughout his sickness, I was doing comedy shows, and it was hard for me because I knew, like, okay, my dad's in the hospital right now. I got to see him after, but I got to perform this show right now. And I think it did impact me a little bit. I wasn't
That's a
quite
lot, the
right.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't quite present, and I think people could feel it in terms of like um, how I carried my jokes, and I still had to carry that on. And but what was more what really impacted me and what I learned from this whole process of loss was that humor can creep up anytime, and you have to take it because you'll need it. And through really painful, hard times, I think it's very important. And it's not taking away from anything when you're laughing. Some people feel guilty. Oh, why am I laughing and being happy when I'm should be in pain? No, I think it's pain and joy live simultaneously together. They are together. They have to be together. And I feel like if you can feel so much pain, you can also feel so much
Mm.
joy. And I
Mm.
remember we were waiting for my dad to transition, and we were waiting in his care home. And I remember that morning there was a jazzercise class for the seniors. And as they were waiting for the music to start up, I started to do a warm up, and I start dancing like goofy, really goofy, dumb dancing. And my mom was recording it, and I didn't know, but I was just trying to do it for the seniors, and maybe it was for myself. And then when I played back the recording, I could hear my mom's laugh. And
Mm.
this was like hours before my dad
That's so
transitioned.
beautiful.
Um, and it helped having that release helped us push through with those hard hours. In the next several hours was really hard, and I think we wouldn't have been able to pull through together as well as we did. We were able to function. We were able to, like, push through and be like, okay, we're in this together.
Mm. That is so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think, releasing energy. I mean, you're being a fully human, embodying everything, the love, the joy, the sorrow, everything. And when you can feel it all, that's how we're human. And I
Yeah,
think releasing it is powerful. I love your comment, what you just said, it's free medicine.
it
It's
is.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
it really helps. Humor is such a healing antidote. I'll share, I remember years of being a chaplain, and every 2 weeks we had medical rounds where the nurse, the doctor, the medical doctor, chaplain, social worker, we all would gather, and we would spend 2, sometimes 3 hours going through every patient, every account, what happened. I mean, literally sitting there talking about death and dying for at
Wow.
least 2 hours, rock solid straight. And humor broke it up. I mean, we had to. It was so intense. And this person, they're circling the drain or they're hanging on the cliff, or, I mean, we
Wow.
had to just have some humor to just have breathing room. And
Yeah.
then it was just like, phew, we could kind of find a flow again, a balance.
Right. Yeah, it almost opens up a space, right? Like you release that energy. It's like you've have the space now to be like, okay, I can use this space. I could use this to for the next several hours, and it gives you strength.
Oh, I totally agree. I found it for me too. It gives me strength and breathing room.
Yeah.
I've lost several family members, including my father. And I just also remember just beautiful moments of telling a joke or remembering something. And it just,
Mhm.
a sense of just deep dropping into a deeper presence, and that sense of being fully here with everything is, yeah, I think about that's what it means to be alive.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's
and
beautiful.
I think of Norman Cousins' book, famous book, Anatomy of an Illness. And his antidote was laughter. I mean, vitamin C, laughter, and really showing laughter through his story, personal story, how laughter is such a powerful healing. I mean, there's research now, I'm guessing you're
Yeah.
aware of this research on how laughter really can heal us physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
spiritually.
Yeah. Definitely. It even say that, people who are in pain cannot have a higher pain tolerance when they're laughing, when they laugh on a regular basis.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've heard literally medical where they have a diagnosis and here's the antidote. Yes, whatever medications or herbal supplements or whatever, but literally watching a comedian on
Mhm.
TV or watching a funny movie. I know people that actually, integrate that seriously in their world, in their life weekly for healing.
Yeah. It should be part of a regular therapy.
That must have been quite a balance, I can imagine, for you when your father was declining, and then here you are at a stand-up club being a
Mhm.
comedian, and then knowing you have to pop over and see your dad,
Yeah.
and just how the depth of the human condition and how we hold everything and how to keep being present amidst what's happening in our lives.
Right. And then like to add another layer, parent your children and be like you still have to parent. You can feel all those emotions, but you can't just be crying for 10 hours. You got to parent, you got to feed them, you got to talk to them. And that part I felt was really hard. Was like, I got to go to the hospital see my dad, but I also don't want to disappoint my kids. They've been wanting to go to this event for a whole week and I have to take them. And yeah, it's tough being in the sandwich where you're parenting and you're also parenting your parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my kids are launched, but my mother is 96 years old
Uh,
and still helping with her with my siblings and working full time. And it's such an honor. She's here. And it's like, wow, what a balance. What a balance. She almost died this winter, but she turned a corner and we're like, wow,
Yay!
I know. It's just such a
Oh,
blessing. And just realizing these are golden days. These are, life is precious. And
yeah.
how do you truly deeply live and being with all of life? Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I,
96.
yeah,
Wow,
I know she'll be 97 in a month. It's
amazing.
like, and she's so sharp and she has this look like, I'm not going anywhere.
Love that.
So it's interesting to hear. I was going to ask you when you first realized that you were funny, and it sounds like as a middle child, and
I didn't realize it. I was always a very shy, awkward kid. English was my second language, and I got teased a lot as I couldn't pronounce certain words. I looked very funny. I didn't dress well. Um, Bad haircut, like, and I remember I was 10 years old, and my teacher sat me down, and she's like, I just want to tell you that next year you're going to be in a different class and you're going to be separated from all your best friends. I only had two best friends and you're going to have to make new friends. And I got really scared because I'm like, why are you separating me from my friends? And she goes, I'm separating you because, and she told me you're a mute. And that was my first time I heard the word mute. And I didn't understand what that was. And she goes, yeah, you don't talk. So you're going to be forced to make new friends. And I got so anxious about that. I didn't know how to take that. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to make new friends. How do I do that? So then I saw this book in our Scholastic monthly order. It says How to Make Friends. It was an A to Z guide. And I
mm,
ordered it. And
mhm.
this book does not exist anymore for a lot of good reasons. And I remember it came and I got so embarrassed. I didn't want anyone to see the cover. I brought it home and the first page, it had went from A to Z and it said, A, do you have acne? Because if you have acne and red bumps all over your face, no one's going to want to be friends with you.
Ugh.
And at 10 years old, I didn't have acne. So I was like, oh, phew, I don't have acne. So I
That is
moved to,
so
right?
bad.
Isn't that nuts, Catherine? That's why the book
Yeah.
does not exist. And
Yeah. I mean,
so,
everyone has acne growing up,
right. And
you
I
know?
remember that. I was like, what is acne? I didn't even know what the word was. Then I went to page B, C, D, E. They were not relevant to me until I got to F. And it said, are you funny? People like when people make them laugh. And then it hit me, Catherine. I was like, I know what I need to do to make friends. I have to be funny. But how do I be funny? So I called my aunt, and she was in high school. My mom and my her siblings were quite, there's a big age gap. And my aunt, she's super funny, Marian. She goes, oh, I have this joke book that you need to rehearse and tell your friends. I'm like, give it to me. So she gives me this book, and I remember the title was 101 Dirty Jokes. I'm 10 years old, and I'm like, I don't understand these jokes. I rehearse 5 to 8 jokes. The next day, I'm in class, and I'm like, hey, anyone want to hear dirty jokes? And I kid you not, all the boys were like, yes. So they stayed behind, and I told them jokes. And I remember the feeling of, wow, this feels really empowering and validating that I can make people laugh. And I continued that. And I think I was like in such a role, like I was on such a roll that I'm like, okay, what else can I make? How else can I make people laugh? Do impersonations. And I started to be like class clown. And then it just, I feel like it was my survival mechanism
Mm,
from elementary school, and it helped me through high school
mm,
all the way to my adult years.
mhm. And did you find as you started telling jokes, just everything started opening up? Friendship,
Yeah, um, I
community.
I did. I felt like I got, as a middle child, I also needed a lot of validation. And I felt like when I made someone laugh or made all my friends laugh, I had the validation. And it was kind of like that dopamine rush where I'm like, I got to keep doing this. And it became like, when you work a muscle, it becomes stronger. It became such a thing that I used humor to deflect my true
Mm,
emotions. So
mhm.
even my sisters would try to be serious with me, and I would crack a joke, and they're like, Alyce, come on, like just be serious for once. And it's still something I use as a way to deflect pain. And sometimes then, after a few jokes, then I can become more serious.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It makes me think, take a step further of to deflect the pain.
Yep.
And now that you're, a really successful comedian, this is your career, this is what you do. I'm curious, as an adult, it would not be surprising that family of origin before that, any pain, any angst of not fitting in or being bullied or not being seen in your family. Do you notice any of those pieces coming to the surface?
Yes, I was bullied so much and excluded in so many groups that I had to really use my personality. I was never like, oh, she's so pretty, let's be friends with her. I had to work for it. And sometimes I feel bad for pretty people, like they grow up not needing to work on their personality. And I always make sure my kids are kind. They did not exclude people, that they did not bully or be mean to anyone. They always include people. And I think I use that. And I always make sure, if I find someone looking like they're excluded, and it happens to adults too. Like if I notice someone at a party that doesn't feel included, I will go up to them and
Hmm.
make sure that they feel like they are heard and seen.
Hmm.
And I do that for my community. And I've been doing a lot of perimenopausal humor, and that's kind of like my whole goal. Like I want women to feel seen and heard through my humor.
And I would guess that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I would guess that being seen is a big piece. I'm wondering of the MomCom
Yeah.
NYC and the messages you have about perimenopause, menopause. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the motherhood journey, that was what started the mom-com. Felt really lonely to me, and I wanted to allow women to feel less lonely, that we're all on this struggle journey together. And now it's like perimenopause. Like people weren't talking about this 5, 10 years ago.
Mm-mm.
Now people are starting to talk about it. Now there's research. Um, And I want women to feel like, hey, you're not crazy and you're not alone. And that's really like, I think my ultimate, it's like really including people to make them not feel like they're crazy and insane, that they're normal.
And I have to say a shout out to MomCom NYC, your Instagram, because I've looked at it. I mean, there's some hilarious pieces where you're talking to your kids and then you forget what you're saying. Or I
Yeah.
mean, I looked at several. I'm like, done that. Oh, done that. Done that.
And sometimes you don't know if is it perimenopause or is it you just have too much going on as a mom, right? Like I don't know. That could be all of
Mhm.
that.
And juggling, going back to the juggling life, your career, kids, you're living in this really intense, busy city,
Right.
finding
Mhm.
that balance.
Yeah.
And going back to early childhood and being bullied. And I have learned personally, professionally, it's just the pathway to healing is feeling your feelings. And even if a feeling comes up from early childhood, it's just, gosh, it takes courage, it takes strength, but how can we feel it? And when you feel it, it's just like, oh, emotions aren't permanent, they move
Oh,
through us, they're released, and all of a sudden there's breathing room. It's like, oh, thank you.
right. Yeah. I always I remember I was doing some meditation and it was a lady that led it was asking us, what would you say to your 4-year-old self? And
Mhm.
oh, I broke down. I'm like, oh, so much to say. And I have to remember to treat myself that way. Because sometimes, someone's complimenting me. I'm like, oh, no, it's nothing. I'm like, no, that's not how I would tell a 4-year-old me. And so I'm learning really late in stage to take compliments. Like, someone's just saying, oh, congratulations, you're touring. I'm like, yeah, so what? Like, no, Alyce, you know, and I think it's very important because I think what you put out in terms of your energy is what you get back. So if you are like, nah, it's not a big deal, then it's not gonna be a big deal. So yeah, it's very important to talk to yourself in a kind manner.
Absolutely. And if you were raised where you didn't receive compliments, it's
Yeah.
new. And I
Right.
mean, I'm similar. I was never told, "Oh, you're attractive," or "Oh, you're smart." It was just expected that we would do well.
Yeah.
And learning as an adult, wow, how to receive compliments. It
Right.
takes a mindfulness and a sense of awareness of, okay, feel that, take in that good energy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Take a beat and actually receive the compliment and let it sit
mm,
for a while.
yep. And even the comment, I love Rick Hanson's work. I trained through him for my neuroplasticity training, but he'll talk about marinating a good, growing the good. Can you take that in and really hold it in your being and grow that sense of love in your heart and soul? What heals you? Do you consider yourself to be spiritual, religious, Buddhist, Christian, atheist, agnostic? In my work, I've worked with thousands of people of all faith backgrounds. What's life-giving for you?
Yeah, I went to a Catholic school when I was really young. Not because my parents were religious. My uh we it was one of the best schools in our neighborhood, so that's why. And then I've always had the question like, is God real as a little kid? So I grew up agnostic, and my mom believes in Buddhists.
Mhm.
And I love going to the Buddhist temple with her, and I love their whole mission and just their philosophy. And um, I feel like as I get older, I'm more spiritual. I believe that our souls forever live on, and I like to believe that. I like to believe that when we're even like close to death, like we're going to someplace good. And yeah, I think as I age, I'm getting to be more spiritual. I know it has to be a greater being up there. I don't know what it is, but we're so small. There's something a lot greater out there, and I like to believe that.
I believe just and this is a visceral experience when I was 11 years old, coming close to dying, of this sense of something came into my body. It was just like ugh, this presence when I was praying that I could please live. I'm a childhood cancer survivor and was very close
Gosh.
to very serious situation as an 11-year-old, and that cracked me open at 11. And I just have been studying and thinking and feeling into this sense of something beyond and what are we? And I think we're a soul and a body for a short time. And
Wow.
then I became, if you can believe it, after this corporate path, I became a chaplain because no one talked to me when I was going through everything. Back then, they had no support for children. And I became a chaplain and to help people. And I witnessed so many people in crisis. I witnessed so many people as a hospice chaplain die and leave their body. And literally, I mean, I'm a mystic, I'm an intuitive. I see spirits. I saw their spirit leave. People came back to see me. So take it out with a grain of salt. But I have not one doubt that our soul goes on. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just listening to the lecture of Anita Morjani, I think
Yeah.
it is,
Yep.
where
Hmm.
she had cancer,
Yep.
fourth stage lymphoma, had
Hmm.
several hours, maybe less, to live, fell into a coma, and she came back, and her cancer was gone in 5 weeks.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think, again, this is an opinion I hold, but I think we have some exit points. Sometimes we're given choices where we can leave. And I think I had one at 11. I had a near death experience, whitewater rafting in my 30s. And I think I had a choice then.
What?
But it's just, coming back to coming into your soul and how do you nurture your soul and what really gives you life. So what would you say really gives you a sense of life? I'm guessing kids but what would you say? What would you share?
Oh, good food,
Mm-hmm.
really good food, especially when I'm eating with people who enjoy the same food. There's
Mm.
nothing is like that.
Can I ask
Travel.
what kind of food? What foods do you love?
I really like Asian food,
Hmm.
Japanese, Thai, Southeast Asian food, Chinese food, Korean. Um, I also love Italian cuisine. Like if I could go to Italy right now, transport myself and eat like fresh pasta and
Mm.
cheese and fresh tomatoes and enjoy it with people that I love. I love that. I love treating myself, pampering myself, going to the spa, getting um, a facial or getting a massage, playing with my kids, being at their level and just being really goofy. And comedy, performing comedy gives me so much life. And meeting, connecting with people. I always say, like, my social media is one side of me. I have so many sides. And when you see a live comedy, you don't know what to expect. It's not like social media where it's edited. Like everything is raw and out. And the it's a playground. Your comedy performance is based on the feedback of the audience. If you have a great audience, that show's going to be stellar. If you have an audience who they don't want to be there, then you're going to feel it. But it's always such a crazy feedback loop, and we have so much fun. And at the end, I get to connect and meet people in real life. That's what gives me so much like life.
Mm.
Yeah, love that.
It just, you are in your calling. You
Oh,
know why you're here.
thank you.
It's beautiful. Do you have jokes in comedy around faith or God or Buddhist? I mean, I'll share with you when I went through chaplaincy training, a couple of friends were Buddhists and one a Buddhist priest. And at the end of the day, we were saying the same thing. We just used different language about surrender, attachment, presence. There's across all world religions, which I've studied, there's so much crossover and there's just a lot of different language used.
Yeah, I don't, but I do want to incorporate grief into my comedy, and I think it's very important because it's changed me, and so I'm sure it's changed you. Every when you
Mhm.
lose someone, and it changes you forever, and I want to also. I feel like when I'm on stage, and ironically, I talk about my dad a lot more now that he's
Mhm.
passed, and I feel like people get to know him when I'm on stage. It's almost like I'm inviting him to perform with me. So I'm telling these funny stories about this man. And when he was alive, I didn't have any jokes about my dad. And it feels like, I'm touring with my dad. My dad's, is coming with me. I'm trying to figure out the right balance. I don't want people crying. Yeah, it's a very fine kind of like way to do it. Like how much of the story should I tell? How to make this part funny when it's like obviously painful. So yeah, I'm gonna talk more about the grief, the process. Um, Everyone is living through it or will live through it or have lived through it. So it's part of our lives. So it's a very
Absolutely.
relevant thing to talk about.
Yeah. Do you feel his presence with you?
Sometimes I do, and like sometimes I feel like, and I'm so skeptical. Sometimes I'm like, no, that's just a bird, Alice, or like, or 1111 means a lot to me. So when I see 1111, I'll try to make a wish, or I'll be like, Dad, are you around? Like
Yeah.
just or
I
the
see
number.
1111 a lot.
Yes, yeah, and I don't know, is it because I'm like looking for it, but yeah, I like to believe that he is around, and I could just talk to him whenever I want. And when funny things happen, I'm like, okay, that was a dad thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I would just suggest, like you are, being open, being open. And I think a big message of 1111 is that you're not alone, that you have guidance and angels. And I think the more open we are, every one of us has gifts. If it's seeing, sensing, feeling, it's not when we're in our mind, it's when we're present. And even just putting out like, okay, Dad, I'm ready to see you or hear you, because I think the veil's very thin between here and the other side.
I love that.
Oh.
Mm.
Okay, so I know we have to wrap this up, but you've almost really answered this question. But I end my podcast by asking, what does awakening mean to you?
I think finding yourself when you were not the most confident and probably going through a lot of pain. I I feel like that is me, but grown up. Like I feel like I'm still that 4-year-old girl. I also feel like I'm that 10-year-old girl who was told I was a mute, and I've embraced it. Because if I never went through that pain at 4 years old, seeing my parents argue a lot and getting bullied, I wouldn't become who I am today. And I love myself. Like
Mm.
I love that 4-year-old and that 10-year-old, and I loved how I handled everything. And I think awakening is when you truly realize you are that person, but you love her. And at 4 years old, I didn't love myself. At 10 years old, I was like most critical about myself. And now I'm like, I see that person, and she's so special. And I feel like I've kind of reached that point.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And then also, I mean, look at how many people you're touching in this world.
Oh, I hope so. I
It's
hope so.
beautiful.
I hope they're not all bots.
Yeah. Well, what a blessing. You're such a blessing. It's just been a treat talking with you. I would
I love
love
it.
to talk more.
Me too.
Yeah. You're a
I want to know more about your near-death experience at 11. I want to know what happened at that white water rafting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you and I should talk. Maybe
Yeah.
we could have you on again and we'll talk more. Because, yeah, I feel a real
Yes.
connection with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Know a lot more about you, Catherine.
Well, keep up the amazing work. You're lovely. Thank you so
You.
much for coming on. Blessings to you, and would love to stay connected and tell everyone how they can find you, reach
I'm
out to you.
very active on Instagram. People can find me MomComNYC on Instagram, and I post my live date shows all the time.
Well, thank you. Blessings.
This was fun. Thank you.
Very fun. Thank you so much for joining Everyday Awakening. Let's keep the conversation going online. You can follow me on Instagram at Catherine Duncan, MABCC. And to keep up to date on the show, subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. I'd love to hear from you.